Hi, welcome to the Ambient iPad. Let's make some music. I'm going to continue on using sounds from the Chamberlin, which was the precursor to the Mellotron. Originally, I was just going to use a couple of Chamberlin sounds, but that kind of is expanded to 5. So I'm going to use 4 Saxes, 4 brass, Vibraphone, acoustic guitar, and flute. And I'll use those in different combinations. So the signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its master mono analog output goes into a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8, which is behind me. That communicates back and forth with the iPad Pro through a USB-C hub that also lets me power the iPad Pro at the same time. So I'm going to use 8 Matrix today as usual, real basic effect setup, which I'll get into, but I'm really going to spend more of the time on the Chamberlin sounds. And also, instead of using a manual mode on the Mellotron, which is traditionally what I use, I'm going to be using a playlist mode, so I'll walk through that too. So let me get the headphones on so I can start with the effects. Get the cord behind me so it's not flopping everywhere. And I really should have done this before. I was like, you know what, I'll talk and then I'll put it on, but that's not really working out for me, so. All right, so I will show a little bit of 8 Matrix up here, but not for long because not a lot's changing. Instead, I'll probably show a series of screenshots as I'm walking through, explaining how you use playlist mode. All right, so let's just run through the sounds here. The effects is really, if you've watched any of my videos lately, Mixbox, just some compression, a little bit of tape echo, some plate reverb. I'm actually using a channel strip this time. I can't tell you why, but I had this set up for a previous jam because it really is just a basic effect setting. And I must have had channel strip on and I've been using it, and actually I don't really need it. It's adding a little more volume and I've had to compensate, but it's too late now. I've kind of been just playing around with a bunch of the sounds and I don't want to fiddle around too much with what I got here. And then I have spatializer front and back just to make a mono sound a little better. All right, let me run through the Chamberlin sounds. First, this is 4 Saxes. If you've watched any of the videos, I've used 2 Saxes, which is part of the Mellotron. This is 2 more, so we've got 4. And 4 brass. Let me add them together. All right, now let's move on. So now we've got the Chamberlin flute. Very similar to the Mellotron Mark II flute, but it's a little different, more of a woody, kind of breathy quality to it. Really sets a different kind of mood. Then we have acoustic guitar. I've talked about acoustic guitars before. The Mellotrons and the Chamberlins, there are some sounds on them that, you know, it's really difficult. Even though they're real recordings of real instruments, sometimes it's hard to find a place for them. But using effects and things like that often help. But with the Chamberlin, the tapes and the sounds are generally of a higher quality, or they sound better than the Mellotron ones. The combination of the studios, the original tapes, the microphones, etc. All right, acoustic guitar from the Chamberlin. It's an acoustic guitar. Sounds a bit nylon strings to me. And you know, and I play guitar, so I'm trying to approach it that way. But there's only so much you can do. Let's move on now to the last sound would be the vibraphone. There's a bit of vibe on there, vibe on the vibes. The sustain, the way the note lingers is way longer than on the Mellotron one, from what I remember. So I'm going to be using those in different combinations. So typically in the Mellotron, I'm in what's called, actually wrong, exit. I'm in what's called manual mode, and that is you have one instrument in slot A and one instrument in slot B, which is great, and that's typically what I use. But if you want to switch between sounds, maybe in a song or like what I'm doing here, there is an easier way to do that. So you kind of hold, actually, get back there. You just press down the right one, and then you keep pressing until you get to playlists. They call them playlists. So what I've done here is I have a bunch set up anyways. Here's just some examples of different ones that aren't the Chamberlin. So here's a cello and a violins. We've got brass and 3 violins. And so I've got the 4 saxes and 4 brass set up. And then the next slot is flute and acoustic guitar. And then vibraphone and acoustic guitar. So it just makes it easier for me to kind of step through the different layers rather than keep fiddling with both knobs at the same time. Sometimes that's easy, and I've done that before. You know, a sound may just be a couple of slots away, but this definitely makes it a lot easier. And a lot of times I don't use it, and I should, and I wasn't even thinking about it, but as I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a layer of this and a layer of that, and I'm switching through, I'm like, wait, there's an easier way to do this. So that just makes it a lot easier. All right, so those are the sounds. Again, the effects are pretty standard here. And what I'll do now is I will just do a jam with all that. You know, it's really 3 separate sets of sounds. The 4 brass and the sax, I'll start with that. Then I'll move on to the flute and acoustic guitar, and then the vibraphone with the acoustic guitar, all Chamberlin sounds. Okay. So the Chamberlin sounds definitely sound a little better to me than the Mellotron ones. I've done some comparisons in other videos, and I can probably do a much better comparison, longer video in the future. But this ended up being kind of a little more composed, only because I thought about it beforehand. And as I've mentioned, I really do two different kinds of improv jams. Some of them are a little more composed and a little more thought out. And others are just, okay, I'm going to use these sounds, but I don't know what I'm going to do. And actually, I kind of feel like I've gotten a little away from that and done a little more on the composed side. So what I'm going to do in some future ones for a while is truly improv. I'm not going to pick any sounds. I'm just going to turn everything on and, twirl the dials, and we'll see what we can come up with. And then I'll just jam. So it'll be kind of true improv from soup to nuts. Then we'll see how that goes. But I'm ready to mix it up even more. So until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.